biggest movie event of the year.
The 2025 Academy Awards ceremony is just days away, and this year's race has been nothing short of exciting. If you're out of the loop, make sure you check out my video breaking down all of the drama of this year's award season and how it has all impacted the biggest night in Hollywood, the Oscars. But today, it's time to talk final predictions. We've all been waiting for the BAFTAs and the SAG Awards to get a better idea of how the categories with tight races look, and boy did those award shows deliver. Considering the roller coaster of an award season we had, it makes sense that both of these shows gave us some exhilarating surprises. Before we get into predictions, let's quickly address why the BAFTAs and more importantly the SAG Awards are so critical in award season, especially this year. Like I mentioned in my last video, the Oscars are the last awards given out during the season. This year, the BAFTAs and the SAG Awards occurred right before the Oscars. Both of these awards bodies also closed their respective voting very recently, so they give us good insight into how voters have been thinking after all the controversies of the season, which allows us to get a better idea of how Oscar voting might have played out. The BAFTAs in particular give us a good idea about the 4 lead acting categories, since they are known to sometimes mirror the Oscars closely. And then remember how I mentioned how each award show has its own respective voting body, and how the Oscars have the most encompassing voting body? Well, that's important because the Screen Actors Guild consists of over 100,000 voting actors, many of whom are also Academy members, which means actors make up the largest voting bloc amongst Oscar voters. Therefore, winners at SAG, especially in the acting categories, have a strong likelihood to win at the Oscars, because the same voters who voted for them at the SAG also probably voted for them at the Oscars. This gives us a good idea of where we might stand in terms of some of the more competitive categories. So with that, let's get into predictions. I'm going to use the official Academy website as a roadmap for the categories. So we're going to start off with Best Original Screenplay. This category might actually be just as competitive as the Best Picture race because a different screenplay has won each time. At the BAFTAs, A Real Pain won. Critics' Choice, The Substance won. The Writers Guild, Anora won, and the Golden Globes, Conclave won. Now, the Golden Globes don't divide their screenplay category into original and adapted screenplay like the Oscars do, and Conclave is nominated for Best Adapted Screenplay at the Oscars, so I expect it to win there. That leaves A Real Pain, The Substance, and Anora as potential winners for original screenplay. This honestly could really go to anyone. I think the most likely scenario is that the 2 screenplay awards, original and adapted, will go to the 2 frontrunners for Best Picture. In this case, that would mean adapted would go to Conclave and original might go to Anora, especially since Anora won at WGA, which carries a lot of weight. I do think A Real Pain could be a surprise winner here, and I would actually welcome that. Sometimes the screenplay win goes to a movie that won't win much anywhere else, like Promising Young Woman. So my personal pick is A Real Pain, but officially I predict Anora. Next, we have Best Adapted Screenplay, and like we just discussed, this is probably Conclave's award to win. The only surprise here would be Nickel Boys. Nickel Boys is a very unique film that hasn't gotten much attention, along with Sing Sing. It deserves to walk away with something, and since it's nominated for Best Picture, this could be where some voters decide to give it some gold. The Academy does tend to sometimes spread wins out amongst films, and this could be an instance of that. But I think it's unlikely, so I'm going to stick to my guns and go with Conclave. Next, we have Best Visual Effects. My pick, Dune Part 2. The technical categories are where Dune Part 2 has any chance of winning anything since it's not getting any love anywhere else. Personally, I think it should be in the Best Picture conversation like many of you have suggested, but for some reason it's being overlooked this year. Maybe because voters are waiting to reward Dune Messiah as a representative for the trilogy, similar to how The Return of the King won big in 2004. Realistically, this category might be one of the only awards Dune Part 2 takes home along with Best Sound. That brings us to Best Live Action Short Film, which I'm going to skip because I haven't seen any of these. So next we have Production Design. If I had to choose, I would easily give this to Nosferatu. That film's production design was fantastic. Realistically though, this is between Conclave and Wicked. And Wicked has won this category at most of the previous award shows, so my pick, Wicked. So that brings us to the biggest award of the night, Best Picture. Now, I explained this category in detail in my previous video, so check that out for a better breakdown. In that video, I said that Best Picture is likely between Anora and The Brutalist. However, in a surprise turn of events, the BAFTAs gave Best Picture to Conclave, and SAG gave Best Acting Ensemble, which is the Best Picture equivalent, also to Conclave. So now this just became a 3-picture race with SAG and BAFTA going to Conclave, the Guilds, DGA, and PGA going with Anora, and the Golden Globes going with The Brutalist. At this point, it's just a matter of which of those carries more weight. Conclave winning at BAFTA and SAG is huge because BAFTA closed on February 11th while voting for the SAG Awards closed on February 21st. So up until just a few days ago, many voters felt Conclave was worth the equivalent of Best Picture, and that likely means they may have also felt the same way when they cast their ballot for the Oscars. I do think that the AI use in The Brutalist was ultimately detrimental in its image amongst actors, more so than anyone else in the industry. I think The Brutalist, having only won the Golden Globe with no wins at SAG or DGA, has a very slim chance to win here. So it's down to Anora or Conclave. Do I go with the SAG and BAFTA winner, or do I go with a very strong PGA and DGA combo, which historically has always been Best Picture winner except for a couple times? Logically, I think it's going to be Anora, but emotionally, I feel like it's going to be Conclave. I like both movies, so I can't lose here, but I'm going with my personal pick, and that's Conclave. Next, we have Best Original Song. El Mal from Emilia Perez was winning this category everywhere, but this is a category where the Emilia Perez drama may have changed voters' minds. Now, they might not necessarily have, because Zoe Saldana's continue to win despite everything that's happened. El Mal might also continue to win Best Song, especially since it's performed by Saldana herself. She is this movie's reverse Achilles heel. However, if voters did change their mind, then I really have no idea who this award is going to go to, because 2 Emilia Perez songs are nominated here. Diane Warren, who is nominated for The Journey, could finally win after being nominated in this category 16 times and never winning once, or Elton John could take the win, having just won at the Hollywood and Music and Media Awards. This is probably El Mal or The Journey. Next, we have Best Score. This is a really interesting category to me because I have loved all of these scores, but also because my favorite score of the year, Challengers, is for some reason not nominated here, even though it won big at Critics' Choice and at the Golden Globes. This category is now down to The Wild Robot and The Brutalist. The Wild Robot is my personal favorite because the score in that movie matches the beauty of the visuals and message impeccably. But because of its previous wins, I feel like this will go to The Brutalist. So my pick is The Brutalist. Next, we have Makeup and Hairstyling. My pick, The Substance. The Substance has won this category pretty much everywhere else, and deservedly so. The makeup and hair in the film is integral to the film itself and is also very well done. So this win makes sense to me. Next, we have Best International Film. This is another category that Emilia Perez had pretty much secured. But again, after everything that went down, that's not as assured as it may have been earlier, which creates a perfect opportunity for Brazil's I'm Still Here. There's clearly a lot of love for I'm Still Here and Fernanda Torres. And I don't think Fernanda Torres, while delivering probably the best performance among the Best Actress nominees, will win. I think this category is how the Academy might still reward I'm Still Here and Fernanda Torres on Oscars night, and it would be a very well-deserved win. So my pick is I'm Still Here. Next is Best Editing. Again, if this was a just world, Challengers would be here like it was at Critics' Choice and where it won, but unfortunately that's not the case. Our nominees here actually mirror the Best Picture race. Anora is a major contender along with Conclave, which just won Best Editing at the BAFTAs, but I think Wicked could win in a similar way Dune Part 1 won in 2022. This is a category where I really have no idea who will win. I have a hunch it might be Anora, but I'm gonna go with my gut and pick Conclave. Next, we have Best Documentary Short. We're going to skip this because I haven't seen any of these and move on to Best Documentary Feature Film. My pick, No Other Land. This is a film that shows the destruction of the occupied West Bank by Israeli soldiers and the alliance that has developed between Palestinian activist Bassel and Israeli journalist Yuval. Frankly, if the Academy doesn't give Best Documentary to No Other Land, they're cowards. Next, we have Best Director. Sean Baker winning at DGA is a strong indication that he will likely win the Oscar for Best Director. I do think that Brady Corbet still has a slim chance because he did win Best Director just recently at the BAFTAs, and while directors and producers really loved Anora, other voters might still prefer The Brutalist. However, that might not be enough since the DGA win does carry immense weight. So my pick, Sean Baker for Anora. Next, Costume Design. This is Wicked Wicked's category to win. The artistry of the costumes and set designs in this film really do a tremendous job in bringing the world of Oz to life. Besides, the craft awards are really where Wicked can shine. Personally, I might give this to Nosferatu if I had to vote, but I do think Wicked deserves this win. Next, we have Best Cinematography. Even though it already won for the first one, Dune Part 2, in my opinion, deserves this award. Greg Fraser is a legend. He always delivers some of the best cinematography, and his magic comes from his in-camera work. But like I said, Dune 2 has not been getting much love this year, and I don't think it will win. This category is between The Brutalist or Nosferatu. Nosferatu is who I would vote for because the cinematography in that movie was incredible. It masterfully captured the atmosphere and tone of the film, truly transforming it into art. The Brutalist did win the BAFTA for Best Cinematography, while Nosferatu won the Critics' Choice. Logically, The Brutalist will likely win, but once again, I'm going with my personal favorite, Nosferatu. Next, animated short film. We're going to skip this since I haven't seen any of these and go on to animated feature film. Now, this category is not as locked down as I would have expected. The Wild Robot was an early frontrunner and did take home the Critics' Choice Award, but Flow gave it a run for its money, having won at the Golden Globes. And of course, to keep things interesting, the BAFTAs gave this award to Wallace and Gromit. So I'm thinking it's either going to be between Flow and The Wild Robot. I can't let down one of my favorite movies of 2024, so my pick, The Wild Robot. Next, we have Best Supporting Actress. We were waiting to see if Zoe Saldana would complete her winning streak at SAG, and she did. This means that the Emilia Perez drama did not change voters' minds about Saldana specifically, since voting for SAG ended after all the controversy. And while the rest of the film might have suffered a loss of votes, Saldana has emerged as a survivor. Most voters are probably rewarding not only her Emilia Perez performance, but also her notable career overall, from her motion capture work in the Avatar films to her work in Marvel. Saldana is also the only actor in 3 of the highest grossing films of all time. That's no small feat, and I do think Hollywood feels it's time to reward her. Next, Best Actress. This is another category we are waiting to see play out at SAG. The race was between Demi Moore, Fernanda Torres, and Mikey Madison. I've mentioned before how Madison has always been a strong contender, and Honora winning at DGA and PGA reinforced that. That strength was compounded when Mikey Madison won Best Actress at the BAFTAs, cementing her as a true frontrunner. If Mikey Madison also won at SAG, she would have been locked in for Best Actress, but she didn't necessarily need to win it to still win the Oscar. Demi Moore, on the other hand, only gained momentum after her Golden Globes win and Critics' Choice Awards wins, so she needed SAG to remain competitive, and she secured that. Sorry, Fernanda Torres fans, I don't think she'll be taking home the gold in this category, sadly. I think this race has narrowed down to Moore or Madison, and in my opinion, it's a very tight race. Both actresses have strong but unique performances and campaigns, and interestingly represent 2 very different types of actresses, one at the very beginning of her career and the other a veteran who hasn't given up. It's really hard to say who will win, and frankly, I love that. I enjoy that there's some element of surprise left at the Oscars. I enjoyed both performances, but we do have to pick one, and my pick, Demi Moore. Now, Best Supporting Actor. This is going to go to Kieran Culkin. He, like Saldana, has swept across the board, and so Oscars night will be no surprise for this category. He will win. And finally, this brings us to Best Actor. You might remember me talking about how this race is largely between Adrien Brody and Timothée Chalamet, even though Chalamet had not won anything this season at that point. Well, that's because a complete unknown overperformed and secured a lot more SAG nominations than expected. Remember, SAG is a big factor when it comes to acting categories. And while Adrien Brody continued his streak by winning Best Actor at the BAFTAs, Timothée Chalamet won the SAG award. So there's clearly a lot of love for this film and his performance, especially amongst Hollywood actors. Timothée Chalamet also really wants this win, as evidenced by his speech at the SAG Awards. His campaign this season has been very aggressive, including double duty on SNL, college football commentary on ESPN,
11 all-conference players. This should be a comfortable, easy win for them.
Dressing like Bob Dylan on the press tour, and even whatever this is. In addition to expanding his fan base and developing his brand, these appearances have kept Chalamet in the spotlight and, more importantly, in the awards conversation. I even included him in my own awards video despite him not having won a single award at the time. Chalamet was firing on all cylinders this season, and it looks like it might have been worth it. Winning Best Actor at SAG is huge. I mentioned how actors are a large voting bloc, and also how SAG voting only recently ended. Again, this means that many voters may have also voted for Timothée Chalamet at the Oscars. I do think the AI story might have resonated heavily with actors specifically since they were the ones who went on strike about AI use. The AI controversy might not have mattered as significantly to other voters, as evidenced by Adrien Brody continuing to win at the BAFTAs after he won at the Golden Globes and Critics' Choice. So now we have to ask ourselves, what's more indicative of Oscar voters? Adrien Brody's sweep outside of SAG, or Timothée Chalamet's win at SAG? If Timothée Chalamet wins, he will break Adrien Brody's record of being the youngest Best Actor winner. But if he loses, I do think it will be much harder for him to win in the future because I don't think his sports talk speech at SAG was as well received by the industry as it was by film Twitter. This might be Timothée Chalamet's best shot at an Oscar for a while. On a side note, sadly for us Sebastian Stan fans, he's pretty much out of the race. Unless there is a sizable amount of voters who would have voted for Sebastian Stan at SAG if he had been nominated. Maybe potential Sebastian Stan voters just haven't had a chance to show out for him, but I think that's just wishful thinking on my part. In all seriousness, this race is between Adrien Brody and Timothée Chalamet. Just like Best Actress, it's hard to say who takes this one home. My pick, Timothée Chalamet. Unless of course we get a surprise Sebastian Stan win. So those are my predictions for the 97th Academy Awards. Share your predictions in the comments below, especially for Best Picture and the 2 leading actor categories. Also, share what are some categories that you're personally invested in and who you're rooting for. Thanks so much for watching and stay tuned for more.